Sampoli B. Mari meeting. I built a life that did not require anyone. That was the achievement. Not a happy life necessarily. Sing. Not an easy one, but a complete one. A contained one. Sampoli B. Indadik Intire. A life that could function entirely on its own. Sampoli B. Indio. I want you to understand that this was not an accident, it was a design. Sampoli B. I spent years constructing it, reinforcing it, Saudi removing every dependency I could find until the whole thing could run without a single external of support. Samkoli Bini Nawe, and it worked. For a long time, it worked perfectly. I needed no one. I asked for nothing. Samkoli Bukenchi or I carried everything myself, because carrying everything myself was the only arrangement I trusted. Sam Aliamers Antupi and Navanas. So I never noticed the moment that stopped being true. There was no alarm, no failure, Zidat, no visible crack in the structure. If there had been, I would have repaired it immediately. Sifoyor repaired. I repaired everything that threatened the design. This did not announce itself as a threat. It did not arrive as weakness, or collapse, or need. Samfolibi intio, it arrived as you quietly, without weight. Sao, any of the warning signs I had trained myself to recognize. Samkolibi indio, and by the time I understood what had happened, it had already happened. Completely, irreversibly. Sim, that in a part of me. I thought I had sealed years ago. That is the part I keep returning to. Samkolibi in the fact that you matter. Though you do, the fact that you got in at all. Sam, because the entire purpose of the way I lived was to make sure no one could. Sample being in now, I have tried to find the moment. I am the kind of person who needs to locate the cause. Stars. Trace the failure back to its source, understand exactly where the breach occurred. Sample years. So I have gone back through everything, every ordinary exchange, every unremarkable afternoon, said Avi relentification that seemed at the time to mean nothing. Sample being in now, and every time I think I have found the beginning, I find something earlier underneath it. Sina, another moment, another silence. Since another small thing I did not register as important while it was happening. There is no first day. Staudiers, there is no clear line where I went from not needing you to needing you. Samoli verbising meeting that abishing. There is only a slow accumulation that I refuse to count, sim, until the total became impossible to ignore, and I think that is the cruelest part of it. Sao, for someone like me, I could have stopped it. If it had come all at once, I would have stopped it. Sampoli B, I am very good at stopping things, but you cannot defend against something you cannot detect. Sampoli being in Dai, and I could not detect this, because it never once looked like the thing I was defending against. Sim, it looked like nothing, it looked like company. Sam will leave like the most ordinary thing in the world, which is exactly why it worked. Sam will be precise about what I mean when I say I need you. Saodium tufin, because the word is dangerous, and I have spent my whole life refusing to use it. Sam will mean yo, I do not mean it the way people usually mean it. Sam will being antivo. I am not talking about the need that comes from emptiness, sinid, the need that reaches for anyone who happens to be standing close. It's a need that would have attached itself to whoever arrived first. That kind of need I understand. Seot. And that kind of need I built my entire life to escape. Samuel Levy Indio. I am not talking about leaning on someone because I cannot stand on my own. I can stand on my own. Samkoli B in Tupi Natam. I've proven that more times than I can count. I am not talking about the absence of strength. Samkoli B Himsi Boingfai. I am talking about something more specific. Something that exists underneath strength. Something that strength was never able to reach. Samkoli B in now. I'm talking about the difference between surviving and being known. Samfrali Meshinchipi, I survived perfectly well without you. I want to be honest about that, because it matters. Samkoli B, I did not need you to keep functioning. Sing, I needed you for something I had not even admitted I was missing. Something I had buried so far down that I had forgotten it was a thing a person could have. Zitaudium. That is the need. I mean not the need to be held up, the need to be reached. Let me tell you how I learned not to need anyone, because that explains why this is so strange. Somewhere along the way I decided that needing people was a liability, not a moral failing. Exactly. Just a structural weakness, a point of vulnerability that other people could find and use. So I closed it. I learned to want nothing I could not provide myself. I learned to treat every form of dependence as a debt, and I hated being in debt. So I paid everything off in advance by never asking for anything in the first place. I became, in my own way, a closed system, self-contained, self-sustaining. Seeing that to generate its own warmth, its own reassurance, its own company, so that it would never have to request any of those things from outside, and I was proud of it. Sam called it independence. I called it strength. I called it freedom. Sam Aldiver, and I believed all three of those words completely. Sal the Bifin, because from where I was standing, they looked exactly like the truth, but I could not see. Sam what I had no way of seeing was that I had not built a fortress, I had built a sealed room. Samuel Lee B, and the difference between a fortress and a sealed room is that a fortress keeps things out, Sao, while a sealed room keeps you in. Here is what made you different. Most people, Sampoli being in taping I can keep at a distance without any effort at all. It is not even a decision. Sakoli resensi when it happens automatically. The way a door closes behind you when you let go of it. People come close, and something in me steps back, and the distance reestablishes itself. Sampoli mean and they never even notice it happened. They think they have reached me. They have not. Sampoli be we NGP. They have reached the version of me I keep at the edge, a polished and capable and entirely self-sufficient version. Sinfully one that gives the impression of access without ever granting it. Saphiridium is in that version has fooled almost everyone. It did not fool you. Stay out. And the strange thing is that you did not seem to be trying, you did not push, you did not pry. Seem you did not do any of the things people do when they are attempting to get past someone like me. Simply stayed. You stayed in a way that asked for nothing, that demanded no entry, sin, that did not treat my distance as a problem to be solved. Sampoli being in Taoist. And somehow that was the one thing my defenses had no answer for. They were built to repel force. They had no idea what to do with patience. They had never encountered someone who was willing to remain on the other side of the wall for as low as it took. Not kind, just present. Sin albi you until the wall began to feel less like protection and more like the thing keeping me from the one Stadarson I did not want to keep out. That is what unsettles me most. Not the closeness, not even the need, the ease of it. Saboldi because Abanascha. I'm going to share 4 hidden truths with you today, because I know how hard it is supposed to be to reach me. Sampoli be into you. I have watched people try and fail for years. I know the strength of the structure I built, because I built it, brick by brick, with full intention. And so when something gets through, I expect to feel it. I expect resistance, friction, the violence of a wall coming down. With you, there was none of that. There was no breach, no collapse. No dramatic moment where the defenses failed. You were simply on the inside one day, and I could not, for the life of me, remember when the wall had stopped being there. Navy, an absence of struggle is the thing I cannot explain. Everything I know about myself says this should have been a war. Instead, it was the quietest thing that has ever happened to me. Sampoli Bininti, and a part of me keeps insisting that anything that easy cannot be real. Sakolier, that I must be imagining the depth of it. Sakoli Meishim, that I have assigned significance to something ordinary because I was lonelier than I let myself bow. Zidadiv Evi, Sakoli Bihintipinet. But that explanation keeps failing, because the evidence does not behave like imagination. Steno di Bihinti Bininat. Imagination fades when you stop feeding it. This does not fade. This stays. I have tried. Sehot, of course, to prove that it is not real. Sekoli bihi, that is what a mind like mine does with anything it cannot control. It interrogates it. Sefoli bi, so I built the case against this with all the rigor I could find. Maybe it is loneliness. Sefoli bi, I told myself dressed up as something finer. Maybe it is the simple fact that you arrived during a season when my defenses were lower than usual. Maybe I am assigning weight to an ordinary thing, because the alternative, that I have been starving for years without admitting it, was unbearable to consider. Explanations were good, they were intelligent. They were exactly the kind of explanations I have used to dismantle 100 smaller feelings before. It could take hold. Sample be into, and every one of them failed. Sailed, because the evidence kept refusing to behave the way the explanations needed it to. Sampoli being loneliness attaches to anyone. This attaches only to you. A lower defense lets many things in. Samoli vis navy. Only this stayed, and the thing I had to admit, eventually, Satmar skepticism had stopped being a form of intelligence and had quietly become a form of avo. Sankolibi Sintipo that I was no longer examining this honestly. Sankolibi Hun. I was just looking for a reason to be allowed to put it down. There was no reason. Sampolibi Inju. I looked everywhere. There was no reason. I have noticed the way you stay. People end when they leave the room. The conversation finishes, the door closes. And they recede into memory, and the space they occupied returns to being mine. All the I'm tired. That is how it has always worked for me, and I preferred it that way. It kept things clean. Samoli we contupian. It kept the system closed. But you do not recede. You stay present when you are not present. Second relations continue after they have ended. Something you said keeps unfolding hours later, arriving with new meaning at a moment when I am not even thinking about you. So I believe, until I realize that I am, that I have been. Senkoli being in Tawi, that some quiet part of my attention has been turned toward you the entire time without my permissio. Sampoli being in Daways. I did not authorize that, I built a self that did not do that. Sampoli being in T. a self that could be alone and feel nothing missing. Sankoli Mikitu, that could close the door and feel only relief. Sam, and now there is this other thing happening underneath, second presence, that does not leave when you leave. And I do not know how to file it, Sam, because it does not match the architecture I spent my whole life building. It is as if you took up residence, not in my schedule, not in my routines. Sam, in the way I think when no one is watching. And that is the one place I never let anyone in. Zakalmzer. It is like a second rhythm now, running underneath the first one. Stone. The first rhythm is the life everyone can see, save on the ordinary tempo of obligations and tasks, and the steady forward motion of days. Sam Woody, that rhythm has not changed, but there is another one underneath it now, quieter, slower, more constant, and it keeps time with you, whether you are present or not. I did not install it. Sekwadi Bean, I would not have known how. It simply began at some point, this second beat beneath the first sound, and once I noticed it, I could not stop noticing it. Similarly, way you cannot unhear a sound once someone points it out. Things in my life used to switch off when I was not attending to them. That was the efficiency of the closed system. Nothing ran that I had not chosen to run. It runs on its own. It runs in the background of conversations that have nothing to do with you. Samuel Rabensi runs through the parts of the day I had reserved entirely for myself. It runs while I sleep. Sakoli Bishintio. I suspect, because I wake already aware of it, Sat already turned in your direction, before I have decided to be. Samkoli Binsungti and the part of me that spent years guarding against exactly this kind of intrusion has, strangely, stopped objecting. It does not feel like intrusion anymore. Savoli B, it feels like the natural sound a life makes when it is no longer pretending to be alone. Sampoli B inti what enough. I lived without that sound for so long that I took the silence for peace. It was not peace. Sample be hintufi not, it was only quiet. Sim, there is a difference between the quiet of a thing at rest and the quiet of a thing that has to apply, never been turned on. Sample be into, for a long time, I refused to name what this was. I told myself there was no need to define it. Sample be into, that definitions only diminish things. Sample me that some experiences lose accuracy the moment you force them into language. Samuel the Almaldusin, and all of that is true, but it was also an excuse. Samari Lee. The real reason I would not name it was that naming it would have required me to admit something about myself that I was not ready to admit. Staldi, because here is what I slowly understood. This was never only about you. Sim, it was about who I become when you are near. And more than that, Sim who he already was underneath everything I had built to hide him. You did not change me. Sam Kolibi Intifoinat. I want to be careful here, because that is the easy thing to say, and it is not the true thing. Sim, you did not make me into someone who needs people. You revealed that I always was. Seot. And that the entire elaborate structure of my independence was not strength at all. Samoli or Zentai, it was a very sophisticated way of hiding a need so large that I had decided the only safe response to that was to pretend it did not exist. Sim, you did not give me that need. You found it. Samoli, you looked at the sealed and self-sufficient person I present to the world, Sampoli being in Dawin, and somehow you saw past him to the one underneath, the one I had spent years pretending not to be. Sam, and you treated that one as if he were the real one, because he was. Sis, and this is where everything began to shift. Sound, where the question I was asking quietly changed into a different question, a heavier one. Samo di Verbuntiu. For a long time I kept asking when did this start? When did I begin to need you? Sam, when did the wall come down? I was looking backward, trying to locate the cause, trying to understand the breach. Because understanding the past is safe, the past is finished. Seeing the Arsendio, you can examine it from a distance without it touching you. Samuel the being in Dawits. But at some point I stopped asking, when, and I started asking what now? What do I do with this? Sam, what happens next? And that question is not safe at all. Sayout, because it does not let me stay at a distance, when keeps me an observer, studying my own life from the outside, taking it apart to see how it broke. Sayout, what now puts me inside it? It admits that I am no longer watching this happen, I am in it. Sit down, it is happening. To me, with me, through me, Samkolibian, and there is no longer any vantage point from which I can pretend to be merely the analyst of my own situation. Samkolibi into, I have spent my whole life as the analyst, the one who understands without being involved. Samkolibi into, the one who sees the pattern and stays clear of it. Samkolibi now, and you have made that position impossible to hold. Samoli Verbentio. There is a word I have been avoiding through this entire account. Samkolibin, and I think you already know what it is. Dependence. I have circled it. I have used softer words. Sandoli Ruindain. I have said need, but I have been careful to qualify. Stioche. To insist on the precise and dignified kind of need. It's the kind that does not threaten the self I built. But underneath the precision is the plain fact. Seot. and the plain fact is that I have come to depend on you. Sing, dotting, in the exact way I organized my entire existence, to never depend on anyone. Samuel Lee Bidin, and the reason that word terrifies me is not that it makes me weak. Samuel Lee Bean, I'm beginning to suspect it does the opposite. Samuel Lee Verbeeson, the reason it terrifies me is that it is irreversible. Sim, to need no one, is a position you can hold forever. Safely, Samkoli Bihimpimi. But to need someone is to hand a part of yourself to a future you do not control. It's to accept that you can now be hurt in a way you had made yourself immune to. Sao, I spent years building that immunity. And you, without trying, Saut, without even knowing you were doing it, dismantled it, Saut, and left me standing in the open, with no defense against the one outcome I had arranged my whole life. Sevo avoid. Seal Virbanti, which is to be a person for whom another person matters this much. Samuel Lee being in die, and I have started to understand what that actually means, in practical terms, as Canis. Seeing, in terms of the days that have not happened yet. To need no one is to owe the future nothing. To be able to lose anything and remain intact. Seout, because you never staked yourself on anything outside your own control. Seout, that was the whole arrangement. That was the genius of it. If I am honest, Sikal genius of a life that could not be taken from me, because I had refused to place any of it, sound, anyone else's hands. Sampoli being in now, and now I have placed something, not by choice, exactly, or not by a choice I remember making, Skal the Edo, and is placed all the same, and it cannot be retrieved. In that, and it means that for the first time in longer than I can measure, Sampoli be into your life, I am exposed to a kind of loss I had made myself immune to. If something happened to you, Sam, it would reach me. It would reach the foundation, not the surface. Sipar. At the part I kept out of everyone's reach precisely so that it could never be reached. Samoli Vihintipo were in my fighting nas and awareness. I used to find that thought intolerable. The idea of being that open to harm through someone else. Samkoli being in Tawin, I noticed that I no longer find it intolerable. I find it true, and I find it frightening. Samkoli being in Dai, and underneath the fear, I find something I did not expect. Seout, which is that I would rather be exposed in this way than sealed in the way I was. Seout, that the version of safety I spent my life building now looks less like protection and more like a peace. Saracen, who arranged never to have anything worth losing, so that he would never have to feel what losing Zanali it would cost. Sam from the outside, nothing about me has changed. I want you to understand that. Seout, because it is part of what makes this so disorienting. The life I built still stands. Samwudi routines are intact, the competence is intact, self-contained and entirely functional surface is exactly as it has always been. Sam, and most people who look at me see no difference at all, because there is none to see. This change is not external, it is structural, and it is buried, and it is total. Inside, it's not. Nothing occupies the position it used to occupy. There is a center now. Seout, and there was no center before, or rather, the center used to be the wall itself. Sikalmde, the great organizing principle of needing no one, and now the wall is not the center anymore. Sao, you are, or something between us is, same osamid in dating and avatin, and everything else has quietly rearranged itself around that new fact. Snarlish urgency, and the strangest part is how natural the rearrangement feels. It does not feel like damage. It does not feel like loss. Safely BNT Wino. It feels like a room that was always built slightly wrong, finally being set right, stot like furniture, sliding into the places it should have been in all along, which makes no sense. Seout. Because for years I believed the room was perfect exactly as it was. Sample leave the emptiness was the design. I did not know it was a vacancy. Sample being nat ua. I did not know it was waiting. What has changed is not what I believe. My opinions are the same. Samwa biamdan too. My values are the same. The principles I organize my decisions around have not moved. Simo Livi, if you ask me to list the things I think are true about the world, Sisladi, the list would be identical to the one I would have given you before any of this began. This change is underneath the list. It is in the lens, not the picture, in the instrument. Sound, not the measurement. I perceive differently now, and because I perceive differently, sepoli, everything, the perception touches arrives altered. Even though nothing in the world itself has moved, I notice things I used to pass over. Sing, I register the texture of an ordinary day that I would once have treated as filler between the things that mattered. Certain truths that were always available to me are brighter now, not because they changed, sebas, but because I am finally standing in a position to see them. Same would bidin you did not hand me a new set of beliefs. Same you adjusted the reference point from which I see all of them. Same be and tawi, and a small adjustment to a reference point changes the appearance of everything measured against it. Sankoli, that is why I cannot point to a single specific thing that is different and say, there, Sao then is what you changed. It is not a thing, it is the frame around all the things. Sampoli being in view, and a frame is invisible until something shifts it. Sao, and then you realize it was shaping everything you ever looked at, quietly, the entire time. Sankoli entire, and that you had mistaken the frame for the world. Sankoli being in you. I have tried to explain this to myself in terms I am comfortable with, terms of exchange, terms of utility. Maybe I need you because you provide something, I thought. See, maybe this is just the system recognizing a useful input, and if that were true, I could manage it. Sound. Because anything transactional can be replaced, and anything replaceable does not threaten me. Sample do, but it is not transactional, and that is the whole problem. This is not built on what you do for me. It is not built on usefulness or convenience or any service. One person can perform for another. If it were, it would be fragile, dependent on circumstances. It is vulnerable to the moment those circumstances change. It is not fragile. It does not waver when things shift. It sits underneath the things that shift. Similarly, in a place where exchange does not reach, in a place I did not even know I had. Sound. Because I had spent my whole life living in the upper floors, where everything is accounted for. And entering is owed, lives in the foundation. And foundations do not disappear when the weather changes above them. Sampoli, that is why I cannot argue myself out of it. I have tried. Sampoli begin die. I am good at arguing myself out of things. Sampoli cannot reason away something that exists beneath the level where reasons operate. Sampoli Eufine, I used to think the thing I had built was freedom. I want to come back to that. Sound, because I have realized I was wrong about it in a way that matters. Sampoli being no, I thought that needing no one meant I was free. Simply, that every dependency was a chain, and I had simply refused to wear any of them. Samoli being in Bioban, but there is a kind of isolation that disguises itself as freedom. Samkoli being in Daddy, and that is the kind I was living in. Sam, because you can be completely independent and completely unreached at the same time. Sing, you can need no one and also be known by no one. And I had confused those two conditions. Said had let the first one stand in for the second. Had told myself that because no one held me up, it did not matter that no one could see me. It mattered. It mattered more than anything. Same with the redentating, and I had simply trained myself not to feel it. The thing you removed was not loneliness, exactly. Same all the loneliness I could have named. Same what you removed was the isolation I had chosen on purpose, and then dressed up as strength. Same all the isolation so old and so familiar that I no longer experienced it as a lack. Same all you reached the part of me that nothing had reached in years, and the moment you reached it, same all the resentio, I understood that it had been waiting the entire time, not for company, not for anyone, still, but for the specific experience of being seen by someone who did not need me to be the version I key. P at the edge. Sail, and once that happens, you cannot unhappen it. That is the thing about being reached before it. See, you do not know what you are missing, and the not knowing is a kind of mercy. Sailed, because it lets the sealed room feel complete. After it, you know that the thing exists. Say, that it is possible, that you are capable of it, and you can never again pretend the room was full. Sample being not you, I cannot return to the person I was before you, and not because I do not want to, so, though I am not sure I do. Sample being in being not to return, because that person depended on not knowing what I now know. This whole piece was built on an ignorance that no longer exists. Sim Williams, he believed the wall was a horizon. Sim, he believed the closed system was the natural and final shape of a life. He was wrong. Sample being in die, and I have seen that he was wrong. And you cannot unsee a thing like that. Sample verse no, there is no going back. There is only forward into territory I did not prepare for. Sin with a need I spent decades denying. Simple European toward a kind of openness I have no practice in and no defense against, and in mutu march and line. Sample B, I am beginning to understand no real desire to escape. You did not create this. Sample B, you I keep arriving at that, and it keeps surprising me. Seeing you did not build the part of me that needs people, you activated it. Sample mean, and those are not the same thing. Creation introduces something new, something foreign, something that was not there before. Activation wakes something that was already present, something that was always there, waiting in the dark, for the right reason to come on. Sapoli B, that is why this feels less like becoming someone new and more like remembering someone old. So, there was a version of me, before the walls, before the design, before I decided that needing no one was the safest way to live. So, and that version never disappeared. He just went quiet, he just waited, beneath the architecture. The competence, beneath all the careful arrangements of a self-sufficient life. So, for someone to come along who would not try to break in. Same was Urventi, who would simply stay long enough and gently enough that the wall would forget why it was there. So, you were that person. You did not knock it down. You made it unnecessary. Samkoli being in Dio, and the version of me underneath, Single M, the one who was always capable of needing and being known and being reached. Sa'am finally had a reason to come back. Sout, because for the first time, there was someone on the other side worth coming back for. Sample years. So here is what I am left with, now that I have followed this as far as I can follow it. Samuel Lee B. I built a life that did not require anyone, and I called it strength. Sample Lee B. Ingio, and for a long time I believed that was the truest thing about me. I was wrong. Needing no one is not strength, it is only safety. and safety is not the same as strength. Sample the being in Tawa, and I had been confusing the two for so long that I had stopped being able to tell them apart. Strongest thing I have ever done, thing that cost me more than all the walls and all the self-sufficiency combined. Stows, or let one person matter this much. Stopped. To stop defending against the one outcome I had organized my whole existence to prevent. Stoned. To stand in the open and admit that I need you. Not because I am weak, Sebas, but because I am finally willing to stop pretending that I am complete alone. Sample thee being in Navi. I am not complete alone. I never was. I was only sealed. Sample thee being in now, and you found the one seam I did not know was there, and you did not force it. Sam, and you did not exploit it, and you did not make me pay for it. You just stayed. Until staying became the thing that changed me. Sam will leave Beeful. There are people who pass through your life and leave it exactly as they found it. Sam will leave you. And there are people who reach the room no one reaches and turn the light on. Sam, and make it so you can never again believe the dark was the whole of it. You turn the light on. Samkoli being now wait, and whatever it costs me to keep it on. Samkoli minantu, whatever it means to live as a person who needs someone now. Samkoli being I am beginning to understand that I would not turn it back off, even if I knew how. Samkoli begin to. I do not know how, and for the first time in my life, I am glad I do not.